Hello, and welcome to the eTech Podcast with me, your host, Ryan Morn. I have been involved in the development of electrified vehicles and machines since 2005 as an engineer and a business leader. This podcast is the product of my passion for electric and autonomous vehicle technology. I'm here to share knowledge from some of the world's leading experts, as well as my own insights. Join me as we accelerate the transition to cleaner, safer and smarter vehicles and grow the industry around the world.
I know we've been doing a lot of great interviews recently with experts in vehicle electrification and battery systems and such like, but today's podcast is going to be something a little bit different, and it relates to a question that I've been asked. And basically that question is, what is so special about Toyota's self-charging hybrid? Okay, so perhaps a little bit of a controversial topic to some people who might be knowing what's going to come next. So Toyota, they were one of the pioneers of the hybrid car. The Prius, really, they led the way. They're showing what could be done by combining an electric motor with a petrol or gasoline engine. Their system, they call it a power split hybrid, and that's because it uses two electric motor generators combined with a petrol engine, obviously, and a planetary gear set. And it gives a really, really flexible drive system. So effectively, you have basically an automatic gearbox, although it doesn't shift ratios. It uses the torque differential between the two electric motors to effectively change the gear ratio. The electric motors are also used to provide torque infill at points where the petrol engine, the gasoline engine, is not very efficient. So it enables the use of a more efficient operating cycle, combustion cycle for the engine, which is called the Atkinson cycle, rather than a normal petrol engine, which uses the Otto cycle. So the Atkinson cycle is more efficient, but it's not very good at transient operation or for giving low-speed torque from an engine. But it's then compensated for with the electric motors. Toyota were very early to adopt higher system operating voltages as well, and they developed their own really cutting-edge, highly efficient power electronic switching devices, which way back people thought that was a really unusual thing to do. So you could definitely say, they were really at the cutting edge of electrification. So a long time before anyone else was even thinking about hybrids, Toyota came out with the Prius, and it created a market for itself. The Toyota system is it's very good at providing different operating modes, but it's always been lacking one key feature until the arrival of the plug-in Prius, and that's the ability to recharge the car from the grid. It would seem like an obvious progression for Toyota to move to plug-ins, but the company's caused a bit of a controversy by not only just backing away from this, but also coming up with a big marketing campaign which has aimed to turn buyers off the benefits of plugging in and you go to the Toyota product, which it calls a self-charging hybrid. And, it's been really controversial in the industry, this, because a lot of people saying it's causing confusion. It's confusing buyers. They think they're buying something they're not actually getting. They don't understand the technology. There's been complaints made to the Advertising Standards Agency in the UK, but Toyota have really doubled down on this. They've defended the complaints, and they've continued the marketing campaign. And personally, I get it popping up in my social media feeds every now and again. So clearly it's reaching out to a lot of people. But it's interesting in terms of why Toyota have done this, and then even in the face of some controversy, they've doubled down on this campaign. And also the other obvious question is, why has Toyota been so resistant in moving to more plug-in technology? Because they've got the plug-in Prius, but they don't offer plug-in versions of other models currently. And you think it would be a no-brainer for them. That's really easy. We add a charger, boom, you've got a plug-in hybrid, and that's going to be quite a simple progression. I think to understand the reasons for this, it's important for us to go right back to the origin story of the hybrid synergy drive system, as Toyota call it, or HDS. So obviously Toyota is a Japanese company. I think everyone knows that. And it's got a huge market presence globally and particularly also in the USA. Now in Japan, they haven't been allowed to have, or effectively allowed, diesel-powered passenger cars since about 2000 because of concerns around air quality. And sort of 5 or 6, maybe 10 years ago, we might have thought that was a strange thing in Europe, but actually, history's shown that might have actually been a really good move by the Japanese authorities. So diesel-powered passenger cars were not a thing in Japan, never have been. And also, I mean, they've not really been a big thing in the USA for similar reasons. The early diesels that came out in the USA were really awful. In a number of states, they were outlawed. And diesels also didn't really become a thing in the USA. So in Europe, vehicle manufacturers met the CO2 reduction challenge by basically moving powertrain technology from gasoline to the more efficient diesel engines. So a typical gasoline engine, petrol engine is maybe 30%, 35% cycle efficient. A typical diesel engine, I should say peak efficiency, 35% peak efficiency on a gasoline engine. Diesel engine is more thermally efficient, so it's better at converting diesel into motion through the combustion process. And peak efficiency on a diesel was getting on for 50%. So, 10-15% improvement in vehicle efficiency just by transferring to a diesel powertrain. So that helped vehicle manufacturers massively in Europe. It was popular with customers because it was saving on fuel costs. So everyone was happy, or at least so we thought. In Japan, though, it was more difficult. You couldn't do that. So there was still requirements for CO2 reduction in Japan, because famously the Kyoto Protocol for global CO2 reduction was signed in Kyoto City in Japan, but you couldn't have a diesel engine in a passenger car. So Toyota in particular looked to hybrid technology to allow it to have more efficient gasoline engines. History showed us that the problems with the move to diesel and really the downfall of the diesel started by concerns in the US over real-world emissions after diesel started to see a growth in popularity, particularly over there. Meanwhile, Toyota's kind of busying away, quietly dominating the hybrid market. Now, you would think when the Dieselgate exploded and, there's a global transition now to electrification and hybrids and fully electric vehicles to achieve the CO2 reduction, that Toyota would have been absolutely ideally positioned to capitalize on anti-diesel sentiment with its hybrid synergy drive. But they haven't really done that. And then this new marketing campaign is actually quite bizarre. But I think, so going back to that early history, the purpose of the hybrid synergy drive is not to provide fully electric driving. It was to facilitate a more efficient operation of a gasoline engine to make it more comparable to the efficiency of a diesel engine. So they weren't trying to give a car the ability to drive in fully electric mode, although you can have fully electric operation with a Prius. They were trying to use the hybrid components, the electric motors, to compensate for the off-peak inefficiency and poor torque transient response with the Atkinson cycle engine, as they were making a more efficient gasoline engine. So as a consequence of that, the motors and the batteries that are used in the hybrid synergy drive system are all relatively small. I mean, some of the battery packs are like less than 1 kilowatt hour in capacity. And they're perfect, for torque infill and a bit of low-speed operation, low-power operation, bit of peak shaving. But they can't do any real electric-only operation. They just simply don't have the capacity. The motors aren't big enough. The batteries are way, way too small, a tenth of the size they need to be. So making the change across the lineup to even a plug-in hybrid is a huge engineering task. It doesn't just simply mean adding a battery charger onto their existing system. They need to make some wholesale changes. And basically, battery pack would need to be 10 times the size of some of the battery packs they're currently using in those hybrid synergy drives. And the motors that they use in the system would need to be much bigger as well to provide the power and the energy storage capacity to make the additional cost, basically, of adding an onboard charger to create the plug-in capability worthwhile. So at the moment, even a small 3 kilowatt charger would recharge too quickly. You wouldn't have enough stored energy to do any useful driving. So you wouldn't get any benefit unless you maxed up those battery capacities. Then on to the advertising campaign. So what are they doing here? There's a controversial self-charging hybrid advertising campaign. So I think there seems to be, certainly from the questions I've been asked, a bit of a misconception that these self-charging hybrids are something new. So let's be totally clear. They're nothing new. It's not a new system. This is the same hybrid synergy drive technology that Toyota's been producing and refining for, 20 years or more now. And also, let's be clear, I don't think this is a bad system. The hybrid synergy drive is a very, very good system. It's a good technology. It's clearly got some advantages when compared to diesel or even high pressure direct injection gasoline engines in terms of the exhaust emissions, while still achieving, competitive levels of real world efficiency, whilst not adding massive additional costs to the vehicle. Okay, so it's nothing new, but it's also nothing bad. So I think that's, it's from a technology point of view anyway. But then the next question is, are Toyota right to use the term self-charging hybrid? Well, I've thought about this long and hard. And I've got to say, it's a difficult one to answer. From a technical point of view, the hybrid synergy drive system does have a small battery pack. And like I said before, the 1-2 kilowatt hours capacity on those battery packs. And it's charged either from regenerative braking, so when the vehicle is slowing down, the motors go into regen mode and they put that energy into the battery, okay? Or from the engine in battery charging mode. You can't plug the car in to charge from the grid, but I would say, rather than saying you don't need to plug it in, I think it's probably better to say you can't, or it's not worthwhile to plug it in due to the limited capacity of the battery pack. And that's really been Toyota's defense in terms of when people have complained about the advertising. It is self-charging because it doesn't have a plug. You don't plug it into the grid. It recharges during regen braking or from the engine. But the problem is, the power doesn't just magically appear from nowhere with no external input. That energy is from gasoline, petrol, and that's burned in a combustion engine to make the vehicle accelerate. And then the vehicle decelerates and the motors go into regen mode and you put power back in the battery. So the charge comes from the petrol. So let's be clear. You're not magically creating energy somewhere. You're recovering energy under braking, which is great, and you're generating energy. Sometimes that's done really cleverly to nudge the engine into more efficient operating zones. So you're generating energy sometimes as well, but it doesn't come from nowhere. That all of that energy comes in the form of gasoline that you fill the tank with, instead of a plug-in. When you're plugging in and you just charge electricity directly from the grid to fill up a larger battery. Now, here's the thing. That self-charging feature of this car is exactly the same feature as every single other plug-in hybrid on the market, except with a plug-in hybrid, you also have the ability to charge clean energy from the grid and have a significant fully electric operation. So I would actually say the self-charging hybrid angle of the Toyota, it's in no way a differentiator. And I think they've got this wrong in terms of they're trying to turn a negative of it's only a self-charging hybrid into a positive. Every other plug-in hybrid manufacturer could say, maybe they should say, self-charging and plug-in hybrid, just to try and nobble Toyota in terms of their marketing. Now, the other thing is that every single EV manufactured, so fully electric battery EV or fuel cell EV even, also all have, every single one of them has regenerative braking. So they also all have an element of self-charging as defined by Toyota, although clearly a full EV or a fuel cell vehicle lacks a gasoline engine for the battery charging mode. But really, by Toyota kind of concentrating on this, I think it's quite a cynical attempt, in my view, to try and extend the life of the hybrid synergy drive technology in the market in the market through some fairly, poor marketing. Really, it's not a feature. What you're saying is, I don't have a big battery or a plug, so you can only use this vehicle in self-charging mode. But the images of the vehicles overtaking vehicles in the desert and EVs, chargers not working and all this, Toyota, every single plug-in hybrid on the market has the ability to charge the battery from the engine or during regen braking. It's not a differentiator. That is what every car does. The fact that you don't have a big battery and you can't charge from a plug reduces the costs of your vehicles and, makes them more accessible. And I think there's a different way, really, that they could have communicated this to the market. I would say, maybe it's just my nature, but I'm a positive person, but let's not try and pick a fight with the superior technology. So yeah, we are losing customers who are migrating up from a Toyota to fully electric or to plug-in vehicles. So maybe people who Toyota's hybrids, by the way, always used to be popular in the past with people who didn't like the rattle and shake of a diesel. So, if you wanted a nice, efficient car, but you didn't want a noisy diesel, then great. I think they're losing market share to people who go, hey, I can get a BMW plug-in hybrid and I don't have to have a clattery, noisy diesel. I can have a nice, smooth petrol car as a hybrid. But, really, let's say Toyota, let's not pick a fight with those guys. Let's be honest that the hybrid Synergy Drive, right, whilst it is a fantastic product, it was absolutely at the cutting edge, it's an intermediate step. It is not the end solution. What you should be concentrating on is attracting buyers up from non-hybrid vehicles. So really spelling out the benefits of the hybrid Synergy Drive compared to a non-hybrid vehicle. Okay, so now you could say pitch it against a diesel. So you say, here are the benefits of the hybrid Synergy Drive versus a diesel, and have some wonderful things of people driving diesels with ear defenders on or something, that kind of pick up on those positive features compared to a conventional non-hybrid powertrain. And also, I think the other thing that Toyota are missing a trick on here is they're not presenting their future strategy. So in terms of an aspirational, here is our stepping stone. This is how you access the electrification market. You can't afford to get into a Tesla. You can afford to get into a Prius. It is a good first step. What they should then also be saying, I think, to their buyers is, and hey, you stick with us as a brand. We're going to bring you more great technology in the future, which will make fully electric vehicles accessible to you as well, or plug-in hybrids, or more functionality, better functionality from their electrified product. But instead, actually what Toyota have done is, I think, stayed quite deliberately silent on anything that they're doing towards full electrification. I mean, there's a little announcement recently about a full EV product, but specifically for the Chinese market. And I think they're actually trying to be quiet about anything more advanced than the hybrid Synergy Drive because they don't want to dilute its position in the market. But I think the irony of that is, by doing what they're doing, they are actually diluting their position in the market, because they've gone really from being the outright, hands-down leaders of the hybrid field to being the laggards, the people who are trying to hang on to the past, and their history, rather than presenting an aspirational vision for a better future. So that's what I would say. Hybrid Synergy Drive from Toyota, great, fantastic product. It's got a lot of really good features, but it is an intermediate step. It's not new. It's the same thing that they've been coming out with for a long, long time. So it's very, very well proven. And if you're looking at electrified vehicles, right, and you're coming from a non-hybrid product, yeah, fantastic. HSD could be a brilliant first electrified vehicle for you to buy and drive. Is it better than a plug-in? No. Absolutely not. The ability to plug in means a bigger battery, and a charger. You've got more hardware in there. You've got extra cost in the vehicle. So if you were looking at a hybrid Synergy drive and you had a same cost plug-in hybrid, you're getting more for your money with the plug-in hybrid, right? Let's not mistake that. So the plug-in hybrids are the next step, and then the full EV is the next step after that. So there are some benefits to the hybrid Synergy drive, but it is a stepping stone into the electrification market. It is not the ultimate solution. And the self-charging features, this is the same. If that's self-charging, every single plug-in hybrid and battery electric is also self-charging, and they have the ability to plug in too. So I really think Toyota have come about this from the wrong angle. They could turn this around and have a massive story here. They've got so many great things, so much fantastic technology in the back end of the switching devices, etc., that make the hybrid Synergy drive. They could have a huge market lead over their competitors. So let's hope that something great comes out of Toyota in the near future and they stop hanging on to the past and they kind of start fighting for a better, brighter future and being a bit more aspirational in terms of what they're doing. So that's all from me today. Thanks very much for taking the time to listen to me ramble on about Toyota and the hybrid Synergy drive system and self-charging hybrids. I look forward to speaking to you again very, very soon. Remember to subscribe to the channel. And it would mean so much to me if you could leave us a rating or a comment. And also, don't forget, if you've got any questions or topics specifically that you'd like to see us covered, please drop me a line with those as well. And we'll add them onto the list. And there could be a future podcast dedicated to a topic that you've asked for. Okay, thanks very much. Goodbye for now.